Okay, so you're gonna be seeing a lot of this shirt in the coming months. Fallout Equestria Project Horizons, as I have said, is going to be my next breeding project when I'm done with Worm. And as of Monday, I'm done reading Worm. As of today, I have made a video for every arc of Worm. I did 30 and 31 together. And I said I want to do some other Worm-related videos, a couple tier lists, and like a final... a kind of like just looking back, wrapping it up, almost like thesis video essay kind of thing. We'll get to that when we get to that. In the interim, we're going to be getting to this. We're going to be getting to Blackjack. So... what is Project Horizons? As you can tell, it is pony adjacent. It is a work of recursive fanfiction, which means it's a fanfic based off another fanfic to Fallout Equestria, which, as you can probably guess from the title, is a combination of Fallout and My Little Pony, Friendship is Magic. Project Horizons is a companion piece to Fallout Equestria. There are a lot of Fallout Equestria fan fictions that take place in that version of the setting that do a lot of different things. I've read a couple of them. I really liked Pink Eyes, and this is the one that a lot of people know. It's like when they think of Fallout Equestria and the other adjacent stories, this is the one that is the most common, the most well-known. And from what I understand, it is quite divisive. I have heard people talk about Horizons and be like, it is some of the worst, most dog shit bullshit I've ever read. I've heard other people say it's fucking amazing. It is objectively better than the original, which, as you can tell from the air quotes, I've talked about this before. I don't like ever saying a work of art is objectively good or objectively bad. And say what you will about Project Horizons, I certainly fucking will. It is a work of art. Yeah, sorry, got a little distracted. I have a bunch of notes. I have them on a computer. I didn't actually write them down. So I'll be addressing and looking over here as I get to some of these. So Project Horizons is 80 chapters, which technically 77 and then an epilogue, but there's 2 chapters that are 2-parters. It's 62, which is the ending of part 4. And it's either 72 or 75, that's the other 2-parter. I don't remember which one it is. Those are, by the way, let me go and say this, full spoilers for all of Project Horizons in this video and in all of these other videos, because unlike Worm, I am not going through this blind. This is something I have read before, I have experienced before, and anytime I talk about it, I will be talking about not only like, alright, let me look at this chapter in a vacuum, let me look at this chapter as part of a greater whole. How it fits, if I think it fits well, the things I think it does well, the things I think it does total dog shit. It's Project Horizon, so there'll probably be a lot of that in every chapter. But it's long. It's really, really long. But anyways, I was talking about the other 2-parter. It's when Blackjack and her team is on the rocket. I don't remember if it's them going to the moon or from the moon is the other 2-parter, but it's either 72 or 75. 80 chapters, 5 volumes. It's about 16 to 17 per chapter, 1.8 million words. And I believe it took the author about 4 years to finish. I didn't start reading it from the beginning. When did I start Horizons? I think I started it in either 2013 or 2014. I did catch up before it ended. I caught up at, I think 74 was the last chapter that was already out when I read it, so I had to wait for 75, which again, I don't remember if that was a 2-parter or not. I think it was. 76, 77, and the epilogue, which came out on the same day. And fun fact, I remember it was the Friday of my first week of law school, which we refer to as I Survived, which is short for I Survived the First Week of Law School, which is generally like the students will go out and just kind of party, you know, like get like off campus, not trying to fuck up anything, like go to a club, have a good time, get to know people, You survive the first week of law school, you can do this. And I remember coming back that night, very tired, drunk for the first time in my life, to the point where I didn't even know I was drunk. Checking Horizons to see if it was out and going, bet, I will finish this in the morning. And that was August of 2015. So it's been 9 years since it finished. Definitely over 10 years since I started it. And after about a decade plus, I need to revisit it. Partially because this is going to sound weird, and I know, like, 1000%, this is a weird fucking sentence to say, and I will try to explain it in a bit as well. But I mean this with all sincerity. Project Horizons, Blackjack's story, is one of the most important and influential works of fiction I have ever experienced. And given all of my opinions on it, and oh boy, are there a lot of opinions on Project Horizons, I would very much like to revisit it. I want to know, have I been too hard on it over the years? I was saying this in the Worm video, like, have I been too hard on it, too lenient on it, just right? The parts of the story that I really liked, do they still hold up? The parts of the story that I fucking hated, are they better than I gave them credit for? Etc., etc. And reading Worm, because and I mentioned this in my last Worm video, there's a lot of weird similarities, and to be fair, I think it's completely independent creation. It would be really weird if one story took inspiration from the other, given how fucking different they are. There's a lot of weird similarities and coincidences between Horizons and Worm, and when I look at a lot of those moments, I'm like, man, those are things in Horizons I fucking hated, and in Worm, I tended to really like them. And it's made me go from, I need to reread Horizons at some point, but do I have to I gotta do it. It is now relevant to me. Like, I just rewatched Friendship is Magic a few months ago. I just finished reading a series that's about as long as Horizons and weirdly similar to it. Both of them have sequels that I haven't read yet, which, Worm, it's pretty obvious why I haven't read Word. I just fucking finished it. And with Horizons, it's... No, I don't think I will. But, I said it was one of the most important and influential. Note, I did not say one of the best or one of my favorites. There's a lot of elements of Project Horizons that I fucking love. And when I talk about them in more detail, to some degree here, but as we go through the that you're gonna hear me absolutely gush about some of these. I love the majority of the main cast. There's a couple that I'm not as fond of, but overall, I really like the crew. I love most of the antagonists. Again, there's a few where I'm like, I'm not as big on you, but I like a lot of the antagonists. I love what they represent, and again, I'll talk about this more in detail later. To me, the main antagonists of Project Horizons represent the 9 deadly sins. And yes, I said 9, not 7. The extra 2 from Thomas Aquinas of vanity and sorrow, I think, are very well represented in this series. And I don't know if that's intentional or just a really neat coincidence, but it's a really neat coincidence if that's what it is. I love the story's construction. Not the pacing, we'll get to that in a bit. But there's a lot of things in Project Horizons where, reading it the first time, I'm like, why are we doing this? This feels like filler. To use a phrase I said a lot during Worm, shout out to Arc 25, it feels like we're just spinning our wheels and we're not really going anywhere. We're like, why is this important? Why is this here? Yeah, it was maybe kind of cool or a little fun, but the story's long, man. Like, I'm past the point of wanting to see cool shit for the sake of it being cool. But then later, you'll understand why it's important. I'm like, oh, there's a lot of foreshadowing that goes on in this story. Like, because I know there have been points where I've just kind of, like, looked through a chapter again and been like, oh, holy shit, this was brought up a lot earlier than I realized. You know what? Props. That was really good. That's something I know I'll be talking about, especially when I get to 65. 65 that's knowledge. I believe it's my second favorite chapter in the story. When I read it, it was my first. And then as the story went on, there were a couple things, like the very last scene when Amadi shows up and he's talking to Blackjack, Cogs, and Steel Rain. And then he goes like, ah, Maiden of the Stars, our battle will be legendary. I will be the one to slay you, or whatever the fuck he says. He's just posturing, having a great time. And he jumps down, gets right in front of Cogs, and then bows to her, like, Your Majesty. I remember Blackjack going, what the fuck? And I read it going, what the fuck? Yo! Like, so, like, I talked about this in Worm when I was Big Z's in Art 26. That moment of completely recontextualizing the story is something that is very make or break. Sometimes it works amazing, sometimes it ruins everything. In Worm, it was phenomenal. And that chapter of Project Horizons is all about recontextualizing the story, and it fucking rules. Then literally in the next chapter, there's a scene with Amadi and Steel Rain. You're like, hey, we're totally gonna betray her, right? Yeah, don't worry, we're still betraying her. I was like, no! But most of the chapter's still, like, fucking amazing, but that moment, that reveal, kicked so much ass! And then immediately, that's not what we're doing. I was not a fan of that. Let's see. From what I remember, I liked the action. It's a very violent story, and I'm not gonna lie, I kind of enjoyed the violence a lot of the time, with just sometimes how audacious it could be, how creative it could be. And just a lot of the character beats and emotional moments of the story, I think, work really well. I'm not sure who my favorite character in the story is, because there's a lot of contenders. Off the top of my head, the ones that really come to mind, not really in a particular order, Cogs, P21, and I will go and say this, it's written P-21. I think the way it's supposed to be read is P21. I read it more as digits than a whole number for two reasons. One, kind of like the way it sounds, P21. It almost sounds like P rhymes with 3. It almost sounds like a countdown, and his days are numbered. I think that's kind of fun. And two, to me, whenever I see situations like that where a character is known by a number instead of a name, for whatever reason, reading it as digits feels even more dehumanizing. I guess de-equining, but you know what I mean. It's very dehumanizing to me. Instead of just like, you are number 4, like you're 004. I don't know. That's how I read it. But Cogs, P21, Rampage, and Scotch. Whisper is easily one of my favorite characters. And I gotta say it, I'm a huge fan of Morning Glory. And that wasn't when I was reading the story. That's a fun run. As I read Horizons, I was like, Glory's fine. Like, I don't hate Glory. I don't love Glory either. I think she's alright. She does her job. I definitely like her more than I dislike her. And over the years, because this fucking thing has stuck with me for years, Glory has gone from a character who I've liked and thought was fine to genuinely possibly being my favorite character in the story. With really thinking about how much she changed and grew and developed as the adventure went on. Like, there was a part where I realized that she and P21, it's not the fact that they're opposite characters, because that's made pretty apparent pretty fast. It's the fact that P21 starts the story as Spock, Glory starts it as McCoy, and by the time the story ends, Glory is Spock and P21 is McCoy, and it makes so much sense, like, reading their stories and their character arcs, how we got to this point. And really thinking about it, I'm like, she's a really good character. She actually might be my favorite. That is one thing I'm really excited to, explore when I reread it. That's a lot of the shit I really like. And the fact that the things that I really, and I do like a lot of the plot beats and like it's like the projects and the mystery of the projects, I think is really, really fun. The fact, though, that for me, it's like, what do I love about Horizons? I'm so glad that I just love the cast. There's a fuck ton of people here. There's gangs out the wazoo. Again, Worm. I'm like, this is just Brockton Bay. It's a shithole, and there's worms of supervillains. There's gangs of supervillains everywhere. This is awesome. I love that shit. But then we get to the Foo-Foos, which is something I spell PHFU. Project Horizons fuck-ups. And there's a lot, like, there's a lot in, like, the micro sense of, like, this is the thing I didn't like, this is the thing I didn't, even in terms of the macro sense. Number one, I'm not huge on the pacing, because it's long. I remember in Arc 2, or excuse me, Volume 2, which is the longest, it's like 1,000 fucking pages. There was a part, I don't remember around which chapter it was. It might have been around Fallen Arch, speaking of scenes I don't like. Sorry, what was my point? I was about to say I lost the plot, and then was like, oh wait, no, that's exactly what I was gonna say. Because there was this really long section in Part 2 where I remember saying to myself, what's the fucking plot of Project Horizons? Because I thought it was following EC-1101, and we haven't done that in a while. We have not been like, alright, where does this thing go? Let's go to the location. We've just been doing a bunch of side shit. And most of the time, like, I remember liking a lot of the side shit. Because again, like, I actually really like the, how do I want to say this? Because it's going to segue into another problem. The original world-building aspects of Huffington. And I like the characters in Huffington. Saying that out loud, it's like, oh yeah, the name of this absolute shithole fucking city, it's Huffington. Boy, that's hard to take seriously. You're in the Hoof P2. Anyways, as much as I enjoy it, there are definitely points where I'm like, this is probably going to be important later. Can we hurry the fuck up? Can we get somewhere, go somewhere? Like, I remember reading Hightower, and I get why Hightower is important. That's where you learn for sure what Project Eternity is, but also by that point, by the time you know there is a Project Eternity, you've met Rampage, you've dealt with Rampage, you kind of know what the fuck it is already. And a lot of the reason it's important is because of Whisper. This is Whisper's arc, where she really starts to become more of a main character, and then she's like absent for all of or most of Part 4. But reading it, as cool as it was, because we're in this like radioactive prison with all this crazy fucked up shit, it was awesome. But I remember also thinking, is this necessary? This feels like really cool filler, but I'm kind of ready to not deal with filler because this shit is long, man. After that, excuse me. Another one of my problems was the overuse of sexual violence. There are a lot of characters in Project Horizons who undergo like sexual assault or rape, either on screen, as part of a backstory. And as the story goes, like for P2-1, it is an incredibly integral part of his character and his backstory. For Blackjack, when Black happens, like holy fucking shit, there is a reason that is the only chapter in the story to have a content warning. And like, damn, it is, like, there's a reason there's that content warning. And it genuinely affects her character later. But I remember, like, it's part of Rampage at one point. Like, oh yeah, this is some of the shit that she's dealt with. Like, it felt like such an afterthought. I feel like I remember that happening with Boing. Like, at one point she talks about that's like, oh, some shit that's happened to me. I'm like, why? Why are we doing this? It's, like I said, there's characters where it works, but from what I remember, it felt overused. Like, it's an easy way for a dramatic backstory, and I just didn't like that. The next thing I just have written, the really good ideas that get ruined. I had 4 written down as specific examples. I'll go and talk about. I talked about one. the idea of Amati working with Cogs, is like everything goes back to Cognitum, is one of my favorite moments of the story. And then literally in the next chapter, it's, he's doing his own thing. Like, Steel Rain, it's fucking Steel Rain. He's going to turn on her. It's what he does. As he says, like, is there anyone you won't stab in the back? Myself. I can't reach that far. Like, that line is everything Steel Rain is, and I adore Steel Rain. Absolute fucking piece of shit. But such a fun character. The fact that the charade of Amati and Cogs as a duo is, like, it doesn't last, is so, like, oh, sorry, I think one of the dogs is outside. Let me go let her out. Okay, never mind. I deadass thought I heard the dogs outside. I was confused because I didn't let them out, and it turns out they weren't outside, so okay. I guess it's like Project Horizon. It's like, here's the thing, and then we didn't really follow through with it or take advantage of it. Cogs and Amati is one. What are the other ones I have? The Dealer. The Dealer's weird because the way it's introduced, it is this Grim Reaper. It is a gambling Grim Reaper. It is just this, like, skull dude with, like, a hat, a trench coat that's just playing cards. And the way he's introduced is that he's Blackjack's conscience. Blackjack, who at this point already has a pretty big fucking body count. What does he show up? It's after... Because I know it's the EC1101 connection, which she had from, like, Chapter 1, but he doesn't show up in Chapter 1. It's after Scootle, for sure. I don't remember what chapter that is. I don't remember if he's before Play. I think he's before Play, which is Chapter 6. So, if he's after Play, then there's definitely a body count at that point. You can add 40. Maybe even more. I don't remember if there was anyone else that she killed. I think it was just the kids. Which out of context sounds really bad, and in context, Play is one of my favorite chapters, and I really like that scene. Again, out of context sounds really bad. I really like the scene when they are discussing the ethics of euthanizing 40 kids. It makes sense in context, and I really like the different positions that we see. But the Dealer feels like he's supposed to be Blackjack's conscience. She has a body count, so her conscience is the Grim Reaper. Her cutie mark, you might be able to see, I don't know, well you can. It's playing cards, it's a queen and an ace, it's blackjack, it's victory, that's important. But it's cards, so he plays cards, like her name is a card thing. I like that connection, and even the fact that the Grim Reaper as a gambler is such a cool idea. I don't think I've really seen that before. And that makes sense, because to him, life has no real intrinsic value, because it's just there for him to collect. It's like chips on a table. It's like money. And with Blackjack, with how many people she's already killed and put in danger, she's kind of gambling with lives too. It works so fucking perfectly. And then partway through, it's like, no, I'm not your conscience. I'm an actual dude that's just, like, bound to this. I'm like, oh, okay. It's not that I hate this as an idea, because I remember enjoying his, like, he's like, dude, as someone who survived the war and who worked in some of the political spaces of it, I have an insight into, like, what's going on here that you don't have. I liked that. But him being just the metaphysical representation of Blackjack's guilt is so perfect, and then it's not that, and then you get to 77, like, near the end, where he's like, actually, Blackjack, I'm the embodiment of the wasteland as a whole, and your cutie mark isn't victory, it's death, and blah, blah, blah. I was like, shut the fuck up. What are we trying to even do here anymore, man? You had your chance to be this cool, like, Grim Reaper conscience thing, then you did something else which was cool, but not as cool, and now you're doubling back by denying that which actually happened, and just... shut up. Another example of something that's phenomenal. Okay, now the dogs are in here and actually want to go outside, so I'll be right back. Another example, and I mentioned this in the Worm video, of a scene from Horizons that I think is damn near fucking perfect, and then it's not, and I think horribly mishandled, is Morning Glory's death. So, In chapter 69 is drip, drip, drip. Fuck. 70, if I remember correctly, 70 is the, like, everyone is here. We kind of gathered everyone that's willing to fight for humanity, for equine kind. Again, kind of wormish. We are going to have a party. Like, we're just all gonna hang out, have a good time before shit hits the fan tomorrow. And 71 is the start of the climax. And Blackjack, I think in both 70 and 71, like, really wants to talk to Glory to work things out from their relationship, which Blackjack has fucked up numerous times, and it's her own damn fault. Glory, who has had to deal with Blackjack's shit the entire story, and is like, you know what? I'm kinda done with this. You are my friend. And I am, like, as your friend, as your party member, I am here with you until the bitter end. Win, lose, draw, whatever it takes, you got me. But as a couple, we're done. And Blackjack's like, I can't accept that. Like, I'm sorry, but I have to be able to fix this. And what I remember Glory saying to her is, like, tell you what, Blackjack, tomorrow we fix this. Like, we survive gold morning. And you have to use my worm terms because, like, it's the same story, weirdly enough. We survive this tomorrow. And it's something from what I remember, I think it's echoed a couple times in 70 and 71. It's like, hey, tomorrow. And then you get to the ending of 71, where Glory sacrifices herself so the rest of the party, like, can go to the moon. It makes sense in context. But so they can go to the moon, like, to go deal with shit. And when Blackjack realizes that Glory is staying behind and is going to die because she is badly injured and bleeding out, Amadi's crew, like, I think that's the, like, Dr. Zodiac soldiers, or, like, the Zodiac clones are all coming after her. Amadi is there, and he will fucking kill her. Also, a nuke is on the way. Glory's dead. Glory is 2,000% fucking dead. Blackjack freaks the fuck out, like, no, I'm not leaving you behind. I cannot leave you behind. I love you. I need you. And Glory's like, Blackjack, we'll talk about it tomorrow. And Blackjack stops. He's like, okay. We'll talk about it tomorrow. And it's quite possibly my favorite moment in the entire story. It is this moment where, it's not to say that Blackjack has never realized before that she can't fix everything, because she's made a lot of permanent mistakes. But it's such a person, I mean, like, look at 99, but it's such a personal loss in a way that not a lot of the other losses are. This is not just, ah, shit, like, I fucked up and some people died. One of your best friends who you love is now gone. And despite your insistence that we would fix it, we'll fix it, I can fix this, I can make things better, I've got this dream in my head of you, me, and P21 living together, being this happy, like, polyamorous cube, this triangle couple, because it can work, and I'm going to make both of you happy. Can't happen anymore. And it's tragic, and it's heartbreaking, and it's beautiful. And I remember reading it and going, this is too perfect. It's gonna get fucked up. And then in, like, the next chapter, when Blackjack's got the, God, I don't remember what it's called, but the thing that lets her see everything that's going on that she found in Thunderhead, I think it was Lighthooves' brother was the guy who made it, but I can't remember the brother's name. There's, like, hints that Glory is not actually dead, and I'm like, oh no, don't be doing this shit. There's no way she could have survived that, which means she's going to survive that. Fuck. And eventually when we get to 76, Glory does die, but she's alive long enough to talk to Blackjack, and they can talk things out and get closure. And for me, the whole reason that scene is so tragic and beautiful is the fact that they don't. It's what makes it so memorable and gut-wrenching and heartbreaking, and then it's, nah, we can still get our closure in the end. Also, Blackjack, I need to give you some exposition on what to do at the end. I was like, no! You ruined a perfect scene for exposition! Ah! Oh, I'm still mad. 10 years later, I'm still mad about that. I had another scene written down. Well, oh, it's the ending. In one of the chapters, I want to say 38. I don't know if I got the number right. I'd be like shocked if I actually got that. You know, I can check. I've got a computer right here. What chapter is Lucidity? Is it 38? Actually, let me just get Project Horizons chapter. Is it 38? I will like flip the fuck out if I got that right. I mean, some of these I know, like I know Play is 6, I know Knowledge is 65. I don't remember what 22 is called. I think it's Descent. 22 is my favorite. That's the Return to 99. It's so fucking good. Let's see. Sorry, I was saying this in the Worm video. I've had Human by the Killer stuck in my head for the past like 3 days. Okay, Google Docs. It's in book 3. Okay. Oh no, it's definitely not 38. Yeah, it's 43. That's super fucking wrong. My bad. Anyways, point. Lucidity is this chapter where Blackjack is in a mental institution and she's like hooked up to some shit and is in like a virtual world where she is being told that Project Horizons is not actually happening. It's just a story in her head. It is her way of dealing with all of her trauma, all of the terrible events that have happened to her by casting herself as a hero in this world, some of her fellow inmates and friends as her party, and the people who she has problems with and who have hurt her as the enemies that need to be beaten. And it is one of the best chapters in the story because I find it so fucking interesting. Take a shot is that word I kept using in Worm. It's such an interesting chapter. Fast forward to 77 at the very end when fighting the Eater, and I do specifically remember reading the fight with the Eater and going, this is just the bio-lizard from Sonic Adventure 2. And a lot of times when reading Horizons, I would listen to music. By the way, Coldplay works really fucking well as a soundtrack to Project Horizons. I took a lot of notes while reading Horizons. I specifically said, I'm not going to take notes at the end. I'm just going to read it. I'm not going to listen to music. I'm just going to go. I had to play Live and Learn while I was reading the fight with the Eater. To my point, the Eater tries doing the same shit of, you're in a genjutsu, none of this is actually real, you're just crazy, blah, 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 blah. Blackjack goes, I did this like 40 chapters ago. You ain't shit. And I remember thinking to myself, what if we didn't? What if Lucidity did not happen until the end of the story? What if, at the very end, Blackjack is hit with this? Whether it's true or not. And it's kind of something up to the audience, like a Life of Pi situation. It's what story do you prefer? Where Richard Parker is a tiger, or it's just a dude. That he was with a bunch of animals, there's one animal who was an asshole and this really like sweet one that died, or it was the cook who fucking killed his mom. It's up to you which version of the story you want to go with. And I remember like a few years ago, not at the moment, but a few years later thinking, what if that had happened? Project Horizons, either explicitly or as an like alternate option, is the story of a young woman who has gone through like dramatic amounts of trauma, and this is her way of dealing with it. Kind of like Celeste, except instead of Madeline trying to climb a mountain, Blackjack is trying to follow like the trail of breadcrumbs of EC-1101 And the people she meets along the way, like the enemies, represent her traumas. Maybe they are representative of a sin, like Amadi being pride, like she has to conquer her pride, or maybe Amadi represents something very specific that happened to her. Maybe it's the fact that he's like always posturing and talking shit is, I don't know, maybe it's someone who bullied her. Maybe the fact that Amadi heals and comes back, he represents this very specific trauma or person that she can't escape. It just keeps coming back. And at the end, when she dies, let's assume the epilogue doesn't happen, because it even says the author says, so you pretend the epilogue doesn't happen. When she dies, you as the reader are kind of left with either this is everything's happening, and Blackjack died. But I think it's a very fitting, it's why, one of the reasons I fucking hate the epilogue is, I think a great ending for Blackjack is for her to die, so she can finally be at rest, and she's denied her rest. But you can also see the alternative way of Blackjack dying represents her waking up. And after going on this adventure and becoming a better person, we can hope, but becoming a better person, a stronger person, a smarter person, and conquering her trauma, she's better. She's okay. She can handle the world. And I remember thinking about it, and this was even, I think, before I played Celeste, it would kind of hit me the way the ending of Celeste does, where it's this incredibly optimistic ending of conquering your trauma and conquering and climbing your mountain. And it's so close to being that, and instead uses it as like a joke. And man, I'm like, I have a lot of problems on a macro level and a micro level. That one change would have fixed a lot of things retroactively, which, let's go ahead and get to the big shit. And yeah, everything I was saying is problems. That's not the big shit. It's important. To me, there's three. The three cardinal sins of Project Horizons. It's three big foo-foos. Number one, the way it regards the source material, because like I was saying a little bit ago, a lot of Huffington's original recipe I really like. I like a lot of the gangs. I like learning about the projects. The idea of Golden Blood, and again in Worm, that's basically Dr. Mother, it works. But it is the constant, and I mean constant, stepping on the original's toes, or hooves, use a horse metaphor. It's the constant stepping on its toes that just bothers me. There's no accountability for most of the main cast anymore. Like, not like Little Pip and shit, I mean like Applejack, Twilight, and them, because Golden Blood's responsible for everything. Oh, the ministries, this thing that like Luna came up with so they would all be able to help and they could essentially rule together. No, she didn't come up with that. That was Golden Blood. Oh, Pinky using her Pinky sense, to make this whole Big Brother is watching you kind of shit. She's too dumb to think of that. Golden Blood did. Oh, Rainbow Dash not knowing what the fuck to do with her ministry and using it as this like Black Ops military force. You really think she could come up with that without old Goldie over here? That's how so much of Golden Blood's story reads. That's how all of Golden Blood's story reads. And it's awful. And then you've got shit like Psalm assassinating Pinky before the bombs went off, where Pinky dying the way she did is one of my favorite moments of the original story. And it's like what I was saying with Glory and Blackjack. It's because of how tragic it is. She was so close to averting the war, or no, the war already happened, to stopping the bombs, ending the war, and getting her life together. And she was just too slow. And this is how she died as a result. It is brutal. but fuck is it effective for the setting. And then instead it's, I mean, she still died. She still failed, but Psalm took care of her. You know, like, hey, don't let me burn. Just don't let me burn. I'm like, for me at least, I feel like the fact that she burned was important. And it's those, oh God, I haven't even talked about my favorite yet. There is a scene in Volume 4, I don't know what chapter, where there's a few moments like this where Blackjack will will catch someone up on her story. Like, I know she does it to Spike, or other people will be like, this is what Blackjack is up to, and a character will be like, man, I thought Little Pip had it rough. Yeah, she fucking did. I read her story. You don't have to compare. Blackjack has it rough as fuck. She probably likes it rough as fuck. I'm sorry, it's Blackjack. I have to make that kind of a joke. Blackjack has a really rough fucking life. So does Little Pip. It does not need to be a contest. You don't have to be like, okay, Little Pip did this, so Blackjack has to do it too. Little Pip had a whole character arc about being addicted to drugs. What if Blackjack was addicted to every drug at once and then broke through of it in like record time? See, isn't she such a better character? There's so much shit like that. But the creme de la creme is when her friends tell Little Pip's friends about all of this shit, and Calamity says, I don't know if he said this to Homage specifically, or if he kind of says it generally to the crew, and he's like, damn, kind of makes you wish kind of makes you miss Party Time Mentals, or Mentat. I don't remember the exact name of the drug, but it really makes you kind of miss Little Pip being, no, not miss, they don't sound so bad. And Homage just looks at him and is like, no, like, that was my baby girl being addicted to drugs and fucking up, like, her life and her physicality and everything. Like, she was not okay. No, they don't seem so bad. Like, it still fucked Calamity. I'm like, one of my favorite moments in the original story, like, a phrase I used a lot in Worm. You're gonna hear me say this probably a lot, too, in Project Horizons, is Little Pip having her intervention. I mean, like, I need these drugs to be better. I need them to be sharper, smart. Fuck, what is the thing with Scrooge? Smarter than the Smarties, tougher than the Toughies, or sharper than the Sharpies. She's like, I need to be all of these. I can't do it without these. And Calamity being there beside her and telling her, I'm so sorry for what I did to you. Because you don't remember this. I gave you that for the first time. I was like, yeah, you know, this is a thing that people use, like, to get a boost. I use them every now and then. I didn't think you would get addicted. And you're like my best friend, Pip. Like, we've become so fucking close. Seeing you do this to yourself, every time I see this, I blame myself because I'm the one who did this to you. And it's that, from what I remember, it was that moment of vulnerability, because Pip was already like, I need to do this, but I can't. And it was that conversation with Calamity that just made her go, I can't do this to my best bud. That was the push she needed to just, like, flush that shit down the drain, not touch it again. She does touch it later, and she's like, guys, I know how bad this sounds. Trust me, I need it. And I know how this sounds. They're like, I need it, and never again. I want you to hold me to it. I want to see this look you're giving me right now, Velvet, where you think I'm full of shit. I need you to give me this look, because I need there to be doubt, because if there is doubt, I need to prove it wrong. But I need to do this because I got a crazy fucking plan involving a nuke. And it is one of the most beautiful scenes in the original story. And it's denigrated for Project Horizons just to make itself feel better. And it is that level. And again, like, I love the original story. It is that level of disrespect that bothers me. Because when Horizons is doing its own shit, it still has problems. Worm has problems, but I love it. When it is allowed to be its own story, warts and all, I think it kind of kicks ass. But it doesn't allow me to view it as its own story, because it keeps inviting comparison. It demands comparison, excuse me, to what I feel like is a genuinely superior work. And every time it does, it's just, you're not helping yourself, man. You're not helping yourself. That's prime cardinal sin foo-foo number 1. There's 2 left. Oh, fuck, we're already at 45 minutes. I knew this was gonna be long. This is what to expect from a Project Horizon video, by the way. That's one of them. Number 2, actually, no, I take that back. That's, sorry, okay, the comparisons to the original story and the source material is 1. The second is Blackjack's. The second is Blackjack. To just put it simply, I think I had something else written that I was going to bring up, because I think I had 3, and then I think I combined them into 1 at some point. The other is Blackjack. I don't like her, but I want to, because Blackjack's base character and personality is really fun and super likable. When she can just, like, shoot the shit with her teammates or with other people, she's so funny. And, like, one of my favorite, there it is again, one of my favorite moments, just one of these little bits of character is when they're on the seahorse and she's getting drunk with Captain Thrush. And I think it's Thrush who does it first. She just, like, takes the empty bottle and puts it on her horn, and Blackjack goes, "Bet, why have I never done that before?" It just does it. It's just fun. It's just goofy, dumb shit. And when Horizons is doing goofy, dumb shit, despite how fucking bleak it is, it can be really fun! That is not to say I dislike Blackjack being an introspective character, and having her faults and her flaws, and reflecting on them and wanting to be better. Like Taylor, trying to convince herself she's still a good person. The problem is, there's a few. For me, number 1 is Blackjack never shuts the fuck up about it. I remember finishing 22. And again, my favorite chapter. And at the end saying to myself, like, out loud, Blackjack, you've earned this one. You angst about a lot of things, and a lot of them, the reason they annoy me is because this is your fault. And not in a way where it's like, fuck, I made a mistake, I need to drill myself on this so I get better. It's, you did something really stupid that got people hurt or killed, and you don't always really face repercussions for it, and you keep making these mistakes, so it's getting harder for me to root for you. I was like, Blackjack, you've earned this one. And then after like a page, I was like, okay, I know I said that, but I've been so sick of Blackjack's blackjacking that I can't deal with it anymore. Even when it's earned, even when it's needed, it's so overdone that I just couldn't enjoy being in her head, which is something I very rarely ever said about Taylor. As I said, like, 22, and I was like, why do I like Taylor and not like Blackjack? Because Taylor, like, she will think about shit, she'll reflect on it and ruminate on it. I feel like Taylor learns from mistakes. Blackjack does eventually, but eventually takes a fucking while. Blackjack's whole, I'm not an executioner with a massive fucking body count, bothers the fuck out of me. Blackjack saying, you know, I just murdered like 50 of your mooks, but I won't kill you because I'm not an executioner. I'm like, no, Blackjack, you're not killing this character because they still have shit to do in the story. This just feels like an excuse for a character to get let go and do shit. And it's like, I feel like I'm looking behind the curtain, I'm seeing the Wizard of Oz at work, and it bothers me. I don't dislike Blackjack as a pacifist. I almost said a pedestrian. I was like, no, it starts with a P. I don't mind her as a pedestrian. You gotta walk to get places. Especially in Huffington. I don't mind a pacifist. The idea, because I know one of her big inspirations is Vash the Stampede from Trigun. Vash is a fucking pacifist because he does not kill people, full stop. Blackjack will kill a fuck ton of people, say, but I'm not an executioner, and because of that, I'll let Dawn go. Now, don't go doing anything I wouldn't do, and then, oh shit, me letting Dawn go had the exact kind of consequences anyone with a brain would think it would. Whoops. Like, that's the one that bothers me the most. Like, I feel like a lot of them in context, I kind of can get her letting this person go or this person go. Her letting Dawn go in Volume 4, and then Dawn doing everything she did in Thunderhead, I was like, oh, I was pissed. Oh, man. Fucking Blackjack. It is important thematically, because to me, I think the big theme of Project Horizons is a second chance. Sometimes a third or a fourth chance. Is a person can be good. It's maybe not always natural. Sometimes you need all these extra chances, but it can be worth it in the end, which is why in hindsight I've really come around to the final party. I don't prefer it over just the main cast, but the fact that every member of Blackjack's final party is either a person directly that she had a feud with, or is a member of a group that she had a feud with, that she made peace with. It fits that theme of second chances and redemption very, very well. But I feel like a lot of the moment-to-moments of it don't. And there's a lot of those moment-to-moments, man. Of it just almost, I think that's really what it was what are to me the three big cardinal sins? Blackjack, Golden Blood. Like, it's really just Blackjack and Golden Blood, and how it just steps on the original's toes when it doesn't have to, is trying to usurp it when it can stand just fine on its own, and excuse me, not knowing the time and place for character angst and character growth, for me, at least where Blackjack is concerned. So, that was a lot. So now, to answer an important question, an hour into the video, 54 minutes, 53 minutes, 52 and a half, I'm rounding up. Why? Why does this matter? Why am I a 30-year-old man who's turning 31 next week? Yeah, my birthday is next week. That thing is fun. Who's turning 31 next week? This invested in a 2011, so like a 13-year-old fanfiction? A 13-year-old friendship is magic-based recursive fanfiction. Why do I still talk about it 10 years later? Why am I still so passionate about it 10 years later? Why do I call it one of the most important and influential pieces of media I have ever experienced? There's a list. Please allow me to read off. Number 1. Because when it stands on its own really fucking well. And I think it's why those moments, the reason those moments of comparison bother me so much are, one, as I said, I feel like you're comparing yourself to what I think is a superior work and trying to make that one seem lesser, and it's just not doing it for me. Please stop. You're like Kendrick at the end of Euphoria, just, stop. The other thing is, because it's so, there's like so much good shit here, even with problems, so much good shit here when it is standing on its own. I feel like I'm reading an original story. Yes, she's a pony, she's a unicorn. Blackjack still feels just like a person. It does not, even though it's very clearly Friendship is Magic fan fiction, it feels more like this is the story of my original characters in my original world. There's just a pony flavor to it. And because I see it so much as like its own original story, I can treat it as such and get invested in it as such. Number 2, it's long. It is 1.8 million words. And I read it over the course of like a couple years because it's so long. And that was definitely at a point in my life where I wouldn't just be like, dude, I don't care for this. I'm just gonna drop it. I had to finish it, so I did. And when you read something that long, it's going to leave a mark, for better and for worse. And with Project Horizons, it's very much for better and very much for worse at the same time. Number 3. Oh, sorry, I have 2 written on there twice. My bad. My mistake. Number 3. Because it is such a genuinely fascinating work to experience. And I don't mean that from the perspective of like, yo, pony Fallout fanfiction, although it is, read the original. Because of these drastic highs and lows. Because when the story is cooking, it's cooking. When like the plot really comes together, or like you actually learn like some of the projects that, okay, to be fair, some of those are stupid. I'm like, why is Project Chimera Discord? Like, okay, like saying it out loud, you're like, that makes sense because he's a chimera and everything, but huh? I mean, sure, but this is Discord. It feels like he's pretty criminally underused. Like the shit with him and Boo, I think is kind of fun, but oh, he hasn't been able to do anything because Star Metal can do whatever the fuck it wants in this story, and it kind of bothers me. Like, oh yeah, the frequency of Star Metal, Discord's useless against it, which, to be fair, this was before the bullshit with Chrysalis and her throne that nullifies magic. So, at the time, it felt like bullshit. In hindsight, I guess it makes sense with canon. But even that bit of canon, I think, is kind of bullshit, so it doesn't really do it any favors. But my point is, when it cooks, and when it burns down the kitchen, it burns down the kitchen. And that dichotomy and that roller coaster of quality is so fascinating to experience that, like I was saying, with it being really long, it really left an impact. Depending on my mood, I would genuinely rate Project Horizons anywhere from like an 8 out of 10 to like a 4 out of 10. That is how drastic the quality is, and that's wild. On top of that, or I guess on top of that, kind of a weird way of saying it, in lieu of that, or like similar, in this similar vein, I've learned a lot from reading it. That's why to me it's so influential and important. I feel like there's a lot of aspects of Project Horizons that I have said, that is shit that I need to make sure I do as a writer. And a lot of aspects of Project Horizons where I've said, that shit I need to make sure I don't do. It is a really good guide. And as someone who loves to write and tell stories, make my own stories, I have to appreciate that. Because there's a lot of shit that I'll watch, read, play, whatever, that I'll like, but I don't necessarily learn from, or it doesn't like give me any real inspiration. Worm is one of those that did. I definitely talked about that. I learned so fucking much from Project Horizons that it's important. And I gotta say it, and again, this is something I say with absolute fucking sincerity. One of my dreams is I want to make a crossover of my works. Like, just, I have a lot of different stories that I'm working on, either like actively working on, or that I've got in my noggin that I want to put onto the page or the screen, whatever. And I would love at some point to do a crossover, like a non-canon event or like some bullshit Tournament of Power thing for shits and giggles. Or even just a cool fighting game that just has everyone, like everyone is here. And I want there to be guest characters. Characters who are important to me. From like, this is a character I love and I love their story, I love the work they're from. And something that come to mind, Homura from Madoka. I would prefer Homura over Madoka herself, because Homura is like one of my favorite characters of all time, just full stop, no bullshit. Estelle Bright from Trails is a character I would love. Ruby from Ruby, which I really would not have said before watching the show, and even through most of watching the show, but Volume 9, for me, did a lot for Ruby's character, and is a character I related to a lot. Also, I mean, she has her sniper rifle. Crescent Rose is one of my favorite weapons of all time. Like, look, if I'm making a crossover fighting game, I need to get you in here. I would love to get Taylor from Worm. That'd be sick as fuck. I would love Blackjack. I've criticized the fuck out of Blackjack. I am going to criticize the fuck out of Blackjack. And genuinely, I do want to say this. That's one of the reasons I really want to reread Project Horizons. It's when I talk about, like, are there things I've been too lenient with or too hard on? Blackjack is a big one. And, like, if I reread it 10 years later with the person I am now and, like, my tastes and sensibilities or whatever, will I be able to appreciate Blackjack the way I appreciate Taylor? And it's like, maybe I just read it at the wrong time. Will I still think she's annoying as fuck? Will it be like, this is a good character, but there's moments where it doesn't work? I want to know. But regardless, even with my problems with her, I still, as much as I don't like Blackjack, I still kind of fucking love Blackjack. I would love, absolutely adore, to have Blackjack in a fighting game getting to fight my own original characters. Like, yeah, you want to talk about some fanfiction shit? I would love that. And I mean, obviously she couldn't be a pony because Hasbro wouldn't let that shit slide. So it'd probably have to be some kind of, like, redesign, which of course, like, I would talk to the author about it. I wouldn't just be like, yeah, I threw in a character, it's Blackjack, but I didn't ask him about it. No, that's fucking shitty. Also, Blackjack could have such a fucking cool moveset for a fighting game. With all of her different weapons. You've got, like, all of her different shotguns, Sexy being her last one, which is the one she wanted most of the story. Duty and Sacrifice, the sword, the Dragon Claw, the police baton. Folly would probably be, like, her level 3 super or some shit. If you want it, I mean, honestly, you could probably have multiple versions of Blackjack in a fighting game that would all play differently depending on where she is in the story. Like, the start of the story, Blackjack, where it's just her regular body. Blackjack, it's what I refer to the Alicorn form as. Like, the Robo-Alicorn. Cyborg Blackjack, but not full Alicorn, just after, like, with the metal legs. They, like, with all the different, like, weapons and shit at her disposal, those different points of the story, they could play differently. I think that's just kind of neat. But anyways, my point, I would love that shit. I think it'd be cool as hell. I know I've criticized a lot of aspects of Project Horizons. Like I was just saying with Blackjack. Oh boy, I think Somber would be a really fun person to write a story with. Because like I said, I think he makes really good characters. Even the ones that annoy me, I still kind of like. And the ones that I really like, I think are fantastic. I think the actual construction of the story is really good. I'm like, I feel like he has a really good eye for that kind of shit. I would love to work with this dude on something. I would love to put Blackjack in something. It's important to me. Even though it's a work of pony fanfiction based on another fanfiction. More than that, it's Project Horizons. And it is finally time to revisit it. So my plan is 80 chapters, 77 chapters, two two-parters on 79, and an epilogue for 78. Or excuse me, an epilogue puts it up to 80. I want to do a video for every chapter. Now, looking at the audiobook, each chapter is around 2 hours, like 2.5 hours, so there's gonna be a lot of content per thing. So I think that'll work. I'm not gonna do one per day. That's a lot of Horizons. I would like to do one volume per month, but that's about one every couple days. I don't know if I really want to do that. We'll see. We're early August. Sorry, dogs want to get in, but I'm almost done, so I'll walk and talk. I would like to finish it by the end of the, okay, so August, September, October, November, December. That really would be a volume a month. That's doable. I don't know if I want to do it, but I feel like either by the end of the year or like by the end of January, maybe February, if like shit comes up, I want to have finished my reread of Project Horizons. Ward will be after that. But, I think that's it. It's an hour. You know, somehow this video being an hour is surprising because it's not longer. But, that's that.